Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am Chris Hyams, CEO of Indeed, and welcome to the next installment of Here to Help. This is our look at how Indeed has been navigating the global impact of COVID-19. Today is July 27th. We are on day 146 of global work from home. And this month at Indeed is International Inclusion Month. I am delighted to be joined today by Suzanne El-Hajj, support analyst and co-chair of the International Inclusion Group. Suzanne is based out of our Dublin office, although of course today is working from home. Suzanne, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me.
So let's start where we always start, which is just to check in. How are you doing right now?
I thank you so much. I like to start off. I'm a little bit nervous about this, but overall, I'm feeling well. Working from home was a bit challenging for me at the beginning as I am on my own in Dublin. All my family is back home in Jordan. It was also the challenge of because I am a people person. I like to be around people. I like to interact with people, spending time with my team and having these little chats in the office corridors and kitchen. Or even like just going out for a dinner or a walk or a movie even in Dublin city centre with my friends. But I believe the best word I can use here is I am adapting like everybody else to this new norm. Taking it day by day and trying to get the best out of it as much as I can. Also finding like these new ways to interact with my family and friends using everything, all the social media accounts that I have.
Great. Well, let's start by talking about your own international experience. So you mentioned, you grew up in Jordan and you now live in Ireland. So please tell us just a little bit about your background and then what brought you to Ireland.
Yeah, definitely. I would like to start by saying I am originally from Palestine. My family were refugees in Jordan. They fled Palestine in 1948 to Jordan. I was born and raised in Jordan to a conservative Muslim family. We are 6 sisters and 1 brother. I know a lot of sisters. And I am also, and I'm the oldest of them all. Growing up, we really didn't have much, and it was really challenging. And I always wanted to continue my further education. And by that, I mean like just getting a bachelor degree. So I can get a good job, so I can help support my family financially. In Jordan, unfortunately, you have to have a degree so you can have a good job. And at the time, the challenge was education was not a big thing in my family. And like you finish high school and then marriage is waiting. And by that, I mean arranged marriage. It's someone the family chooses. And I think that's when my very first clash with my dad happened because he was not expecting this from me, I think. And he was thinking like he's all the dads in the family. He will have the daughter that's finishing high school and off she goes to get married. But then he had to adjust to this. I think he was also considering at the time the clash with the bigger family because sending his daughter to college was not something that really happens in the family. Also, like the financial situation was already a challenge. So I was very, very lucky. He turned around and he was a great ally and support for me in this. And allow me to say something about this. I'm using the word ally now because at the time I had no idea that this word existed. But now I understand the importance of it, the impact and the importance of it in my life. I also had another great ally, which was my mom. My mom stepped in because of the financial situation, and then she had to sell a gold bracelet she had inherited from her mom in order for me to be able to pay for my very first semester at college. Then these were very amazing long 4 years at university, very challenging. But then as a family, we made it. I was able to get my degree in management information systems in one of the universities in Jordan. Then the journey for searching for a job started, and as all fresh graduates, it was very, very hard to find something, and obviously with no job experience. But then it worked out. I was accepted as a data entry specialist in one of the small companies in Jordan. Then from there, I moved to another bigger company that was a Jordanian company, but they were operating in different countries in the Middle East at the time, and it was the biggest Arabic search engine in the region. A couple of years after joining this company, it was acquired by a US company, and I think this was my very beginning to exploring the global world. As we started to have guests from all around, especially from America. So many American guests in the office. Then fast forward 4.5 years, this company decided to close the Jordan office, unfortunately. And then because of this event, they had to offer some people to go abroad. And I was very lucky. I was chosen to come to Ireland. And I came, and it was because of my job. Probably something because like my job and my education have changed my life. So something I would really like to mention here and thank Indeed for is the marketing campaign that we did some months ago. The Jobs It Changes. Just watching this campaign was really touching to me because it was very personal, and I know how that feels. I know how like a job can change someone's life because I have lived it. So thank you Indeed. And this is how I basically moved from Jordan to Ireland.
So coming to Ireland from Jordan and from your experience, I assume there were some pretty large cultural differences you noticed right away. What was that like, and what were some of the big things you noticed?
I mean, like coming to Dublin was my very first time in a plane. It was my very first time, like just seeing the world from above. Before I was 30, I didn't have a passport, so you can imagine how excited I was. I do remember every single detail of from leaving home to getting to the airport to hopping on the plane to just speaking in English for with everybody on the plane was a spectacular experience. I was just like super excited to experience this. Another thing, when I arrived to Dublin, I think it was really funny. I like just wish that there was a camera filming me. I was like Alice in Wonderland, just seeing the buildings, the streets, hearing the many languages in the streets. It was I was so fascinated. It was also eye-opening to me how diverse Dublin is. Again, just walking the streets, you can hear all the languages and all the accents, and that was really exciting to me because back home in Jordan, everybody speaks in Arabic. Now we do have like some different dialects, but after all, it's Arabic language, so you do understand it. Then something also that I noticed because of this diverse environment, you do see different shades and shapes of people, and that was really something that I never seen in my life. So it was really fascinating. And then names was really something as well. My director at the time, she was Irish, and her name was Neve. Now in Arabic language, you do say the name as you write it, but in some other languages, like the Irish language, you don't. So her name was always a conversation. Even back when she used to visit us in Jordan, her name was always a conversation. And it's because we write it differently from how we say it. So this was also a good start for conversations because it opens up different conversations about different languages, different accents, different cultures, and with my team at the time in this company. So I did learn a lot, and I was so happy that I experienced this basically.
So because you mentioned, let's talk about names for a minute. When we met last week, the two of us, to prepare for this, I asked you how to pronounce your name, your last name in particular, and your first reaction was to say, oh, don't worry about whatever is fine, which is something that a lot of people do. And obviously the desire to fit in is an important one. But since this is International Inclusion Month that we're recognizing here, and when we talk about inclusion, I know from a lot of people that having their name mispronounced is a source of exclusion. Now, for many names, it's not necessarily possible for a foreign speaker. Your name, your last name, for example, El Haj, the H sound is not something that in Romance languages we have at all. I had to watch 5 YouTube videos just to even understand what how to try to not butcher it when I introduced you here today. But it does feel like it's important to at least have that awareness and at least ask and make the effort. And so can you talk from an inclusion perspective a little bit about the importance of names and pronunciation?
No, totally, because I think we're speaking culture today. So that's why when you said, I'm sorry for for saying your name wrong, I was like, don't even worry about it. I was so happy that you mentioned my name. So let's start by that. But I think after the conversation we had, it is important to try and make the effort to just say the name as it is. And if I don't want to talk about my last name, but even about my first name, so sometimes people call me, it's like Suzanne is very international, I'd say. Speaking of international inclusion group, it's very international and people do know the name Suzanne. But then if it's not spelled as they are used to, they may say it wrong, and sometimes people would talk to me or chat me and they will still write it in their spelling, not the spelling I have chosen for it. So it is important to make the effort. It is important to try and say the name as you can. Now we obviously the differences between how can you perfectly say it is understandable. We all come from different backgrounds, so that's totally understandable. But at least I can see that you have made the effort to make it. Just saying the name and trying to say the name correctly means it's basically you're saying to the person in front of you, I see you, I hear you, I probably feel your pain in different areas because of the name. So it is very important. But again, Chris, I think here the culture is a good element. So coming from the Middle East and being an Arabic language native speaker, I do understand that our language has different, you can't say, for us it's different from other people who are not native speakers, because we do have some letters that you have to stress or probably say from the very end of your throat or stuff like that. We do have that in the language. So I totally understand the difference. But just for people to understand the to try and make the effort to say the name right. Saying the name means that you say to the person, I see you, I feel you, and it's also appreciated. I totally appreciated when you said, I'm sorry I said your name wrong, and it's you didn't, but okay. So it's so much appreciated, even if someone cannot say the name perfectly, but the effort is so much appreciated.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing that. So let's talk a little bit about your role at Indeed. So what brought you to Indeed, and tell me what you focus on as a support analyst?
Definitely. I did stay with my first company when I moved to Dublin for a couple of years, and then I started to looking for a job, and I always wanted to work for a company with a mission. And I think Indeed has and a mission, not only any mission, but a mission that impacts people's lives. And probably Indeed's mission, we do help people get jobs, was very personal to me, because this was my mission my whole life. I always wanted to get a good education, to be able to work in a good position or in a good job, so I can help my family. So the mission of Indeed was very personal to me. And I first day I was invited to the interview in Indeed, I knew I wanted to work for this company. My interview was in our St. Stephen's Green office in Dublin City Centre, And just seeing how vibrant the office was, and it's in the middle of the city, and also like the diversity in seeing people coming in and going out was something very it was a great feeling for me. I wanted to work for Indeed even before my interview started. I was like, I hope they will take me. Then I joined as a support analyst on the business operations and support solutions team. My main role is to help our frontline teams, sales, CS, and job seeker success, to overcome any technical issues our users may see on Indeed. We do also work closely with our product teams and engineering to fix these technical issues. We also work with our communication team to make sure that our frontliners are empowered by resources to be able to support our users the best.
So at Indeed, we have 5 core values, and one of those core values is inclusion and belonging. And we've created a series of inclusion resource groups, or IRGs, that are there to help promote awareness and create a better sense of belonging for our employees. Can you talk a little bit about why we have created an international inclusion group? This is the group that you are the co-chair of, and talk a little bit about what some of the events and activities that you and the team have organized for this month.
Definitely, the international inclusion groups is near and dear to my heart. I really like it. I do feel international. The main mission for the international group is to leverage and value international cultures by supporting and promoting a workplace of inclusion, diversity, and belonging. And like, I think there is no place better than Indeed to do this, as we have 10,000 employees in 16 countries, and we want to celebrate everybody from everywhere. And help them bring them authentic self to work with no fear of showing who they really are. The focus of this group is culture, multiculturalism, and interculturalism. And sometimes people may ask, like, why do you focus on culture? And my answer always goes, because it is the ground in which a human being can grow. It's the first access to my taste in food, my taste in music, my way of caring towards the society I'm in. It's basically the first thing to who I am as a human being. And then this is obviously, like, moving in life, this can change, but this is my grounds basically. And especially in environments and international environments where people may move to different countries. Sometimes we tend to hide our culture identity, maybe because they try to fit in the new environment, or because maybe afraid that they won't be included, or like any other reason. And as you mentioned, we celebrate international cultures in July. It is our celebration month, and we do celebrate different culture and at Indeed. And because everything that's happening around us, and like the tough times that people are going through, we wanted to do some educational events around different cultures. So we have asked people to share with us something from their own. And we also have been sharing, I know everybody loves music, a good list of music. So we have been sharing a weekly music list with the people to enjoy with a specific theme from different cultures. We also had a theme for this month, and it was, we chose humanity. Now, this was really, really like near and dear to my heart, because when we came up with the theme, I wanted people to feel, I wanted people to a little bit like to see the stories from around Indeed, and to feel that there is hope despite the hard times that we are all going through. We wanted to enforce hope. So we did ask our fellow Indeedians to share some of their personal and international stories with us. and we called the campaign Global Human Stories of Indeed. Now, the goal was from this campaign to foster connections and open conversations, and also to give a platform for Indeedians to share their stories with us, the ones we wanted to highlight, to reinforce hope, as I mentioned, and enlighten people's day with some amazing stories that have been shared. We did take some of the stories we have received and had a discussion last week, an internal discussion. It was moderated by our very own Hines, who is our VP of Global Sales and CS Strategy. And it was amazing to hear these stories and absolutely get inspired by. I probably want here to highlight that we chose humanity because I don't think there is anything more international than our human side. We all come from different backgrounds, different races, different ethnicities, but if there is something exists in all of us, it is our humanity, and it is our kind side towards each other. And I think that's what we wanted to get inspired from these stories, basically.
So you mentioned multiculturalism and interculturalism. Can you talk a little bit about the distinction and why this is important?
Yeah, definitely. In environments like Indeed, where people come from different backgrounds and probably move from a country to another for their job, it is important to understand the differences. It is important to value someone's individuality, and most importantly, to educate everybody about it. Because not all of us know everything about every culture. And that's our role here as the International Inclusion Group. Multiculturalism basically means different cultures live together. Simply put, it's a diverse society, while interculturalism is recognizing the differences, respect them, and also seeing the similarities. It's basically the deep understanding of someone's culture. We also want to help people find their balance. For me personally, when I first came to Ireland, it was challenging for me to find my balance, as I came from a conservative environment to this widely open environment. And it took me a minute to find my balance and not exclude myself from what's around me. Because that's what we usually do when we feel we don't belong to the environment around us. We usually exclude ourselves. So I really, in the International Inclusion Group, we try to understand the differences and help people with the process of feeling the belonging that we want them to feel.
So one of the things that we talk about in Indeed is barriers to finding employment, and how can we understand those and help lower those barriers. So what are some of the barriers that come up when multiple cultures get combined in a single workplace?
I can think of so many. There are loads. Language probably is the biggest one, and I'm sure you hear this a lot, especially from the international offices. When English is the main business language, and the fear of talking in English to a native speaker, I'd say, can be very challenging in my mind. Like if I want to speak to someone whose mother tongue is English, can be in my head it might be very challenging. But then overcome this fear can really help a lot. And then also the fear of, even if I talk in English, will they understand what I'm saying? So we put these barriers in our heads before we start. And something else I want to highlight here is sometimes non-native English speakers may give a person a very hard time for talking in English and for having an accent or wrong grammar, any of these problems. And that may affect someone's level of confidence to speak the language. Well, sometimes even speaking to a native English speaker in English, we don't see this problem. So and this obviously happened to me. So when I used to work in Jordan, it was so much easier for me to speak to American guests or Irish guests because their mother tongue was English. rather than my colleagues, because they will give me a hard time for speaking in English. So language can be something big. For example, in our Tokyo office, we do have 70% of employees in Indeed are expats, and their language is not Japanese is not their first language. So our group, I want to highlight some of the work that our group is doing there. So our group, they launched a language exchange club. So people will teach each other languages and on one-to-one, and this can be like just to say like small phrases or like small sentences, but also maybe use it in business. And I think this is a great initiative that our group is doing there. The main aim is to empower each other with language and give more access to each other, and it also helps building relationships. Nelson Mandela says, if you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his own language, that goes to his heart. And that's basically the goal of us trying to teach some of the languages. Something we also focused on in our Dublin office, for example, we celebrated the Mother Language Day. We did have a session with several people, and we did some questions with general information. We also celebrated the Irish Language Day, which I really tried so hard to learn something, but it's really hard, but I did try. And I think that it opened up great conversations. You learn a lot about someone's language from these sessions. Another barrier I can think of is accent. Someone's accent can be received wrongly, and I may be able to speak an excellent level of English, but people may not get me valued because of my accent. And although accent can show authenticity of a person, but it also can give them a very hard time by showing their brilliance. I have Arabic English accent when I speak in English, for example. And whenever I go, for example, to the US and people know that I live in Ireland, they always ask me, where is your Irish accent? And I go like, I don't have it because I didn't grow up in Ireland. It's a beautiful accent. I would very much like to have it, but I don't. But I also explain to them that my Arabic English accent is just showing who I really am. And I want to help people to, and it shows also the authentic me. And I want to pass this feeling to other people who may have a problem like talking in English with an accent. I want to highlight here, maybe there are some local organizations in Ireland. They are working towards protecting accent. There is some good campaigns, especially in EMEA, or like in Dublin, where we have so many people who are speaking in English, but they do have an accent. So I'm trying to partner with them to bring some of their work to Indeed, to do some workshops probably around how to respect accent and how to not how to respect and protect accent, which is I think it's great given the diverse community here, and like allow or help people understand that if you have an accent, that doesn't make any less of you as a person, or any less of you to be valued. Probably clothing can be a barrier. For example, I'm a Muslim woman, and by wearing my hijab or scarf or veil, like what's easier for you, can sometimes allow people to. By wearing this, I am showing my religion. I'm telling people I am a Muslim lady, and sometimes people's bias work once they see me. They decide things naturally because I am a Muslim with a hijab, and they can decide what I am based on that, which can sometimes create barriers because of this bias, basically. And I'm just only one example. Stereotyping people based on what they're wearing happens everywhere. Like, I was really shocked when I first went to America. My very first trip to America was to California, to San Francisco and Sunnyvale. And I was like shocked by the less formally how people are wearing clothes to work. They were less formally than what I am used to. And I was like, Americans are so chilled. They're like, yeah. So it was. So for example, this is a culture thing. We didn't have this in Jordan, and I didn't see this in so many places. So clothing can be something, religion as well. I have to talk about religion because I am a Muslim lady, obviously, and my religion, and by wearing the hijab, I'm telling people I am Muslim. Respect this. This is this in a way. For example, we are in Islam, we're asked to pray 5 times a day, and mostly 2 to 3 of these prayers happen during working hours, and depending on if we are in the summer or in the winter time. And when I first moved to Ireland, first thing at the time my director did was making sure that I have a nice, clean, cozy place to pray, and I had everything I needed. Same thing happened when I joined Indeed. First thing my manager did was to make sure I have access to the wellness room, and everything was okay for me to be able to perform my prayers in. And I thought in both cases I was very lucky, because both of them did know much about Islam, and they did know the importance of this to me. And they were very educated about that. And most importantly, even if they didn't know much about this, they knew how this important to me, and that made me feel that I like this place. I want to be in this place. Now, I was one lucky person to have this, but sometimes other people may not have the same level of understanding, and they may not have like an understanding manager, or their offices may not be ready to have something else. And again, I'm only one example. Maybe there are some other people with other requirements or other needs they need in their work environment. So just understanding what a person need on this can be very exciting. I'm sorry, I just like bombarded you with barriers. I hope
No.
you're not like.
That's fantastic answer. So the last thing that you talked about in terms of showing up in a company and having someone be thoughtful enough to show you a place where you practice your prayer, that's a perfect example of inclusion. And when we're talking about trying to create a more inclusive workplace, education and awareness feel like a really important starting point. So how can we do that to help create a better workplace for everyone?
Definitely. What we need to do, especially from our inclusion resource groups, is be able to build an open culture where our differences are respected, valued, and accepted. We did see so much in the pandemic and some unfortunate incidents towards some communities because of the coronavirus. And it was so hard for me to see personally. And it helped me to be more open to understand what these people are going through and accepting them as well. I think it is the only way I can see this happening is, not the only way, but like the best way is to be, as I mentioned, the word ally was, I know the word ally like just recently, and being an ally to not only to our communities or to the causes we care about, but also to the human beings we work with. When you see someone as a human being, you will value you will value as all the labels, if this is the right term to use, they put on themselves. Like, for example, I'm Muslim, I'm a woman, like all of these labels on me. We are all different yet very similar. If we understand that, that would be perfect. And then building all these projects and all these programs from this start point, I think this would be a good start. We all seek a good quality of life. That's I think that's our mission as human beings. We want to have a good life. We want to be appreciated, and most importantly, we want to be seen. We all have what we need to do as well as allies. We need to use our voices and support each other to achieve that. I do value Indeed for doing this and providing an environment of openness for people to express themselves in a very respectful way. I think one example to this before the pandemic happened last year, we had celebrations like our Christmas in the year, the Muslims' Christmas. It's called Eid al-Fitr. And something that Indeed did at the time, we did have like a corner with all the sweets and desserts that Muslim people usually celebrate at this time. And I was so fascinated by this because I didn't ask for it. Usually I would raise a question, like, but I didn't. And I was surprised to see the corner with all the Arabic coffee and all the usual desserts that we do have. And I thought that this was a great thing to do, a great initiative. Another example to this, I'm so sorry that my examples are related to Muslims, but these that are the ones I like worked on. We do have this year, we during the pandemic we did have Ramadan. And for people, if you don't know what Ramadan is, it's a month in the year where Muslims fast from dawn to sunset, and we do this for 30 days. And we did partner the International Inclusion Group with the agency group in London. We work to create awareness around the month and how can people support their colleagues, and if how managers can also support their direct reports. And I thought this was a great example on how can you take something and then show the impact of you supporting someone else can be.
Well, to wrap up, the last several months have been incredibly challenging for so many people, but there have also been some new perspectives, new insights, and new ways of staying connected that have come out of this experience. On a personal level, are there any things that have happened throughout this time that leave you optimistic for the future?
Chris, I am a very optimistic person, and I know this can be very annoying to some people sometimes, especially like my closest friends, they go like, you're so annoying. But I always try to find something good about what's happening around me and focus on what I can control, basically, because this is what I can do in hard times. And also, I think this also comes from my origins as a Palestinian person. Palestinian people live with hope and they call out for justice all the time. So, and as well from my religion as a Muslim person, we do believe that whatever happens is part of a bigger thing that God has for us. And probably the most amazing general thing that I have seen during the pandemic is how we as human beings can adapt to change and turn our survival mode on and go on. The many stories we have heard about how people came together and helped each other during the pandemic, it just tells me how that humanity wins, like no matter what, humanity wins. Another thing that I would very much like to say, speaking of humanity, is that how Indeed's leadership focused on people during the pandemic while making sure the business is running. And I would very much like to thank you, Chris, and thank all the SLT or the senior leadership of Indeed for showing the human side of great leaders. I definitely was inspired, and I'm sure I am it's inspired by you guys putting people first. I think I'm also sharing a lot of Indeedians' voices by saying this, this makes Indeed a great place to work in and very hard to leave. I'm not leaving anytime soon, but just saying. I think because people know now that they matter, and I think like we have seen from the so many questions during our weekly meetings, how people are thankful for the leadership of Indeed. Another thing that I thought that was brilliant is the U Day we just got, like until the end of the year. This was a great example of how Indeed leadership is listening and trying to show all of us how that we are in this, we're all in this together. Maybe another thing that I would very much like to share with whoever is watching or listening to this, and maybe having a hard time. While I like growing up, I didn't have much, and but I followed my dreams. I don't know if you have the picture, but there is a picture, if you can put it, my family's door's balcony before. We used to share this balcony with our neighbors growing up. It looked over the refugees camp that my great-parents lived in when they came to Jordan. I used to stand on this balcony and just to dream and think of all the stories these people have, and thinking of my dream. I just want to say dreams are valid, no matter where you are and no matter where you're from. I probably have not achieved my personal or career goals yet, but I am enjoying my journey. It's important to believe in yourself and chase your dreams, and don't be afraid of showing who you are. It's what your culture is and where you came from, so you know where you're going. And thank you for the question. I really like it.
Suzanne, thank you so much. It was such a delight to talk to you today and to get to know you as we were getting ready for this conversation. And thank you so much for everything that you do for Indeed and to help create a more inclusive workplace. It was just such a pleasure to talk to you today.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you. Like the thank is extended to you as well for having me and allowing me to share my stories with Indeed and our external speakers. Audience. Thank you so much.